The sound of a $200 bottle of Dom Perignon shattering against the tile floor was not the most frightening thing I experienced that afternoon. The most frightening thing was the look in my sister Serena's eyes before it happened. Wide and white-rimmed, not with remorse but with fury, the particular fury of a person watching something beautiful be ruined, except the thing she was watching was me. She was screaming that my black wheelchair looked like a lump of coal in her perfect garden. Then she shoved me into the champagne tower, and the whole crystal structure came down, and the blood that ran across the white tiles mixed with sparkling wine until you couldn't tell them apart. I couldn't move my legs to stand up. I never can. But Serena had made one catastrophic mistake. She didn't know that the elegant woman in the cream pantsuit who crossed the lawn in 3 long strides and dropped to her knees beside me, placing both hands around my head with the precise, controlled motion of someone who had done this 1,000 times, was Dr. Claire Ashford, the groom's aunt, chief of neurosurgery at Emory University Hospital in Atlanta. The woman who had personally drilled 8 pedicle screws into my T10 and T11 vertebrae 24 months ago and saved my life in the process. This time, Dr. Ashford wasn't holding a scalpel, she was holding the law. But I'm getting ahead of myself. To understand how a biological sister could do what Serena did, you have to go back to an hour before, when the gates of Wisteria Grove Estate first swung open and revealed what I can only describe as a pastel fever dream. Pink roses, mint green hydrangeas, and cream lilies spilled from every surface. Gossamer ribbon twisted around white columns. A string quartet played something baroque and expensive near a marble fountain. This was Serena's vision of perfection. And I was about to become the single dark mark on her pristine canvas. The mandatory dress code, spring pastels, baby pink, mint green, no exceptions, had been specified in looping calligraphy on the invitation. I had complied. I was wearing a pale pink silk dress I'd found on sale at Nordstrom Rack, the kind of dress that made me feel almost pretty despite everything. The fabric draped nicely over my atrophied legs. I'd done my hair in soft waves past my shoulders. But my wheelchair was matte black. A specialized ultralight carbon chair, 18 pounds, worth $5,000, every penny I had saved from disability payments, birthday checks from distant relatives, and freelance editing work scraped together over 2 years. This chair was my freedom. My ability to navigate the world without asking for help every 5 minutes. I hadn't thought Serena would care about the color. I had been wrong about many things back then. I rolled up the accessible ramp, thank God the venue actually had one, and scanned the crowd for my sister. She stood near the champagne fountain in ivory lace that probably cost more than my entire year's worth of medical supplies, her blonde hair in an elaborate updo, laughing at something her fiancé Daniel had said. Daniel was an architect, soft-spoken, with a genuine easy smile. I'd wondered more than once what he saw in Serena, but Serena had always been exceptional at showing people exactly what she wanted them to see. I approached with nothing but sincere hope. Wheeling through clusters of guests who politely stepped aside, my heart hammering, I still believed, despite 2 years of cold silence, despite the way she'd rewritten history to make herself the victim, that somewhere inside my sister was the girl who used to braid my hair before dance recitals, who snuck me cookies when Mom put me on those horrible pre-performance diets. "Vivian," she said, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "You made it." The phrasing of it, "you made it," as if she'd expected me to fail, or perhaps hoped I would. I swallowed the hurt and held out a small gift wrapped in vintage rose-patterned paper. Inside were a pair of vintage pearl earrings I'd spent weeks tracking down on antique sites and estate sales. Serena had said, years ago when we were still close, before the Jeep and the tree and the sirens, that she loved vintage pearls. They reminded her of our grandmother's jewelry, the ones lost when she passed. To buy them, I'd had to withdraw money from my emergency medication fund, the account I kept for when insurance inevitably denied coverage for something essential. But I'd wanted to give her something that said, "I still love you, even though you've made it clear you don't love me back." Serena took the box with 2 fingers, as if it might contaminate her. She opened it without ceremony, glanced at the pearls, and her lip curled. "Second hand," she said. "It like a diagnosis. This doesn't match my dress at all." She set the box on a nearby cocktail table without looking at it again. Her thumb was already scrolling her phone, checking how many likes her engagement announcement had gotten. My chest tightened, but I swallowed the hurt, the way I'd been trained to. "Don't rock the boat, Vivian. Your sister is going through a stressful time. Be the bigger person." Except then her gaze dropped to my wheelchair, and her entire demeanor shifted from dismissive to something uglier. "What is that?" she hissed, stepping closer. "My wheelchair. Serena, you know that pitch-black chair looks like the Grim Reaper crashed a garden party," she whispered, leaning close enough that I could smell champagne on her breath. "You did this on purpose, didn't you? You couldn't just let me have one perfect day." Before I could respond, she had turned and walked to a service station nearby, snatched a white tablecloth, and snapped it open with a sound like a whip crack. She marched back and tried to drape it over my legs, over the chair, as if I were a piece of furniture that didn't fit her aesthetic. As if I were something shameful to be hidden away. For the first time in 2 years, 2 years of accepting blame for an accident I didn't cause, 2 years of enduring her cold shoulder and her revised version of history, I fought back. I grabbed the tablecloth and pushed it away. No. Such a small word. Such enormous consequences. Serena's face went red and blotchy. She yanked the tablecloth back and stormed away, not before I heard her mutter something I won't repeat. For the next hour, I watched from the periphery as she worked the crowd, her charm turned to full wattage. I watched her lean in and whisper to guests, watched them glance in my direction with expressions ranging from pity to suspicion. I knew exactly what she was doing. She was controlling the narrative. Getting ahead of whatever story might emerge from our interaction. I would later learn exactly what she'd been telling people. That I had Munchausen syndrome, that I sat in the wheelchair for pity but was actually fine. That the accident 2 years ago, the accident she caused while driving and texting her ex-boyfriend before hitting a tree, wasn't nearly as serious as I made it out to be. That I was dramatic, attention-seeking, jealous of her happiness. She was using my injury to paint me as a liar. The worst part? Some of them believed her. About an hour after the party started, a photographer appeared. He began setting up near a raised platform decorated with $1,000 worth of peonies. Family photos. Serena announced, her voice cutting through the string quartet. Everyone gather round. I stayed where I was. Maybe if I remained still enough, small enough, she'd forget about me. No such luck. Serena's eyes found me across the lawn. She gestured impatiently. I wheeled over slowly, dreading whatever awaited. The family had already assembled, my parents looking uncomfortable in their dressy clothes, Daniel's parents looking wealthy and vaguely confused, various cousins and aunts filling the gaps. And there, at the far left of the formation, sat a large pink ribboned banquet chair, straight-backed. No arm support, the kind of chair I absolutely cannot use. Matilda, Vivian, Serena said sweetly, her public voice dripping with warmth. Move the wheelchair to the side. Sit in that chair. I want the photo to be uniform. Everyone was watching. The photographer had his camera up. Mom was making her please don't cause a scene face. Dad stared at his shoes. Serena, I said quietly, keeping my voice steady. You know I have AT10 complete spinal injury. I don't have the core balance to sit in a regular chair safely. I'll fall. I'd explained this before. Countless times. AT10 complete injury means no sensation or muscle control from the belly button down. No abdominal muscles to hold me upright. No way to catch myself if I start to tip. Sitting unsupported in a regular chair is like asking someone to balance on a tightrope with no pole. Serena's smile didn't falter, but something dark moved behind her eyes. You're just good at ruining things, she said, her voice still sugary for the crowd, but with an edge that could draw blood. Then, leaning close, you're jealous because I'm getting married and you're in that chair. Aren't you? The word she used, I won't put it in this story. Not because I'm protecting her, but because some words lose their power when you stop letting them live in your mouth. I had heard it from strangers, from children, from drunk strangers at bars. Never from my own sister. Then she grabbed me. Both hands, under my left armpit, yanking upward with a strength I didn't know she had. The jerk was violent and completely unexpected, pulling me up and forward at an angle that immediately destroyed what little balance I maintained. My hands reached for the wheelchair armrests and found only air. The world tilted sickeningly. In her fury, Serena stepped on the hem of her own long dress. I saw her stumble, saw her arms windmill as she fought to keep her balance. Her grip on me loosened entirely as she lurched backward to save herself. She caught her footing. Regained her balance with the grace of someone who still has full control of their body. I wasn't so lucky. My lower body is immobile, dead weight I cannot control or compensate for. The momentum from her pull launched me forward, and I had nothing, no legs to brace with, no core to right myself, and the champagne tower was directly in front of me. An elaborate pyramid of crystal glasses, 7 levels high, each one filled with golden bubbling liquid. I hit it with my shoulder and chest, and the entire structure came down. The sound was extraordinary, a cascading crash of breaking glass, like wind chimes made of violence. Hundreds of shards exploded outward. I felt them slice into my hands as I tried to break my fall, felt them cut my face and neck and arms. My head snapped to the side and hit the tile floor hard enough to blur my vision. The bottle from the top of the pyramid, that Dom Perignon, placed there like a crown, fell onto my shoulder and rolled away. Blood spread across the white tiles and mixed with champagne until I couldn't tell what was wine and what was me. The entire garden went dead silent. No music, no voices. Just the sound of champagne still dripping from the edge of the platform and my own ragged breathing. I lay there, unable to move, afraid to move. My neck hurt. My head was ringing. Glass was embedded in my palms. And somewhere above me, I heard Serena's voice, high and frantic. Oh my God, my $5,000 dress. You ruined my party. Not, are you okay? Not, someone help her. Just, my dress. Several guests started moving forward, and then a voice cut through everything. Stand still. Don't anyone touch her. Female, authoritative, the kind of voice you obey before you've even processed it. Through my blurred vision I saw a woman drop a Gucci handbag onto the grass and push past a waiter. She moved with the absolute certainty of someone who knows exactly what to do in an emergency. She knelt beside me in the puddle of wine and blood without looking at her cream pantsuit, and her hands found either side of my head in the standard C-spine hold, gentle, firm, precise. Listen to me carefully, she said, her voice completely calm. Don't try to move. Don't turn your head. I'm going to hold you steady until the paramedics arrive. I knew that voice. Dr. Claire Ashford, Daniel's aunt, chief of neurosurgery at Emory University Hospital in Atlanta. The woman who had saved my life 24 months ago. She looked up and found Daniel in the crowd. Call 911 immediately. Report a spinal injury and assault. Request police and an ambulance. Now. Assault. Serena's voice went shrill. What are you talking about? She fell. It was an accident. Dr. Ashford wasn't looking at Serena. She was looking at me, and something in her expression, a mix of recognition and barely controlled fury, told me she had known the moment she saw me fall who I was. Vivian Wells, she said, just for me. I know you. I'm going to take care of you. You're safe now. And despite the pain and the blood and the glass in my hands, something inside me, some coiled, exhausted thing that had been holding itself rigid for 24 months, finally let go. Stand still. Don't anyone touch her, Dr. Ashford repeated, her hands motionless on my head. Her voice carried across the silent garden without effort. Aunt Claire, Serena said, her voice acquiring the particular quality of panic that arrives when a person realizes they are losing control of the story. You're overreacting. She can walk. She's faking this to ruin my engagement. Dr. Ashford's response could have frozen nitrogen. Miss Wells, she said, loudly enough for every guest within 30 feet to hear. I am the surgeon who personally drilled 8 pedicle screws into your sister's T10 and T11 vertebrae 24 months ago at Emory University Hospital. I know the architecture of her spine better than she does herself. A collective intake of breath from the crowd. Would you like to debate spinal anatomy with the chief of neurosurgery? Silence from Serena. Blessed, absolute silence. In that one moment, every rumor she'd been seeding throughout the party, the Munchausen syndrome, the faking, the attention-seeking, collapsed as completely as the Champagne Tower. The confirmation of a top medical authority, spoken publicly, in front of 50 witnesses, was something no amount of narrative control could undo. From the ground, I could see fragments of the crowd. An older woman with her hand over her mouth and tears in her eyes. A younger couple frozen, the man's arm pulling the woman close. And at the edge of my vision, Daniel. His face was white. His expression was that of a man watching a building he thought was solid turn out to have no foundation. Serena stood very still. Her perfect updo was beginning to come apart at the edges. The paramedics arrived in minutes. Dr. Ashford gave them a rapid-fire assessment while keeping her hands exactly where they were, T10 complete, hardware in place, head trauma, multiple lacerations, possible cervical involvement, and they worked around her like she was the anchor of the scene, because she was. They applied a rigid neck brace, rolled me onto a backboard, secured me with straps. As they lifted me onto the stretcher, I finally got a full view of everything. The demolished Champagne Tower, the blood-soaked tile, the scattered crystal catching the afternoon light. And 50 guests, all staring with expressions that ranged from horror to something quieter and more considered, the expression of people who are rapidly recalculating everything they've been told over the past hour. 2 police officers had arrived with the ambulance. I watched them approach Serena. One of them, a woman with her hair pulled back, produced a notepad. Ma'am, we need to ask you some questions about the incident. Serena's composure broke. It was an accident, she said, her voice climbing. I was just trying to help her sit down for the photo. I would never. I saw what happened. The voice came from an older man in a gray suit near the edge of the gathered guests. Raymond Holt, a business associate of Daniel's, someone I recognized from the few times I'd met Daniel's professional circle. He stepped forward, his expression grave. My name is Raymond Holt, he said clearly. I was standing less than 2 meters away. I saw her use both hands to grip her sister and pull deliberately and with force. That was not accidental. That was intentional. The female officer's expression hardened. She turned back to Serena. Ma'am, given the witness testimony and the victim's visible injuries, I need you to come with us to the station for questioning on an assault charge. What? Serena backed away, her voice going shrill. You can't take me, it's my engagement party. She swatted at the officer's arm. That was a mistake. The officers moved instantly. The handcuffs clicked into place and Serena began to cry, not delicate, dabbed tears but genuine ugly sobs, mascara running in black lines down her face. Her $5,000 ivory dress was soaked with champagne and marked with a few dark spots of my blood. As the police led her toward the patrol car, she kept looking back at Daniel, at my parents, at anyone who might step in. But the crowd parted for her without a word. And Daniel stood completely still. He didn't call out, didn't argue, didn't proclaim her innocence or beg anyone to stop. He watched her go, and then he turned and looked at me on the stretcher, and gave a single slow nod. Dr. Ashford climbed into the ambulance beside me. "I'm accompanying the patient," she said, in a tone that ended the conversation before it began. "Tell County General that Claire Ashford is en route. I want imaging ready on arrival." The doors closed. The sirens started. I closed my eyes and let out a breath I hadn't known I was holding. 2 days after the engagement party, I lay in a private recovery room at Savannah's County General with a concussion protocol band on my wrist and approximately 30 stitches distributed across my hands, face, and arms. The imaging had come back clean, no new spinal damage, thank God. Just soft tissue injuries and the head trauma. Dr. Ashford had arranged the private room. She had also, apparently, given some instruction about press access, because there were reporters. Society bride assaults disabled sister at engagement party had made local news within hours. Someone had filmed the incident on their phone. The footage cut off just before I hit the champagne tower, but it clearly showed Serena gripping me and pulling. The news stations blurred my face. They did not blur hers. Her breakdown, her arrest, her ruined dress, all of it captured and shared thousands of times. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I mostly felt tired. The hospital room door opened and Daniel walked in looking like he hadn't slept since the party. Wrinkled suit, uncombed hair, the expression of someone whose entire understanding of reality has been restructured. "Vivian." He pulled a chair close. "I am so sorry, I swear to God I didn't know." I believed him. Daniel was many things, but he wasn't a skilled liar. If he'd known the truth, it would have shown every time he looked at me. "She told me you were the one driving," he said quietly, "that you crashed the car going too fast. That you'd had too much to drink. That she tried to stop you but you wouldn't listen." The revised history. I'd heard it so many times from my parents that I sometimes caught myself almost believing it. "I don't drink," I said. "I never have. Ballet dancers don't, and I was serious about ballet." Dr. Ashford arrived 10 minutes later, carrying a manila folder. She pulled up a chair without being asked, opened the folder, and placed a document on the bed in front of Daniel. "This is the toxicology report from Vivian's original hospitalization," she said. "Her blood alcohol level at the time of admission." Daniel read it. His eyes widened. 0.0. "The police report from the original accident," Dr. Ashford continued, placing a second page down, "indicates the driver, Cassandra, Serena Wells, had been texting on her phone when the vehicle left the roadway. She lost control on a curve. Vivian was in the passenger seat. She never touched the wheel." Daniel looked at me. "Serena was driving. She was texting her ex-boyfriend," I said. "They were arguing about whether they were really broken up. She kept looking at the phone instead of the road. I told her to stop, to pull over. She said she had it under control. The memory is exact, the blue glow of the screen, Serena's thumb moving fast, my own voice saying 'Serena, please,' the road, the sickening lurch as the wheels left the pavement, the tree filling the windshield, and then nothing but pain and sirens and the knowledge that my life as I'd known it was over." "Why didn't you tell anyone?" Daniel asked. "I tried. When I woke up after surgery, I told my parents what happened. They said," I stopped, swallowed. "They said it would ruin Serena's life if people knew she'd caused it. That the insurance would come after her, that she might go to jail, that I needed to protect my sister. They convinced me to say I'd been driving." Daniel put his head in his hands. "Jesus. What Serena did at that party was assault," Dr. Ashford said. "What your parents did 24 months ago was coercion and insurance fraud. The statute of limitations has not run out on either." My parents arrived the following evening. I knew before they opened their mouths what was coming. They had not called to check on me. They had not asked whether I was in pain. They showed up when Serena needed something, which was when they always showed up. "We need you to do something," Mom said, her eyes red-rimmed. "It's very important, Vivian." "Drop the charges," Dad said. "Tell the police you slipped. Say your sister was trying to help you up." "She's your sister," Mom added, squeezing my hand too tight. "Family protects family. You know she didn't mean it. She was stressed about the wedding, and you know how you can be." "How I can be," I repeated. "You know what I mean. Difficult. You insisted on bringing the black wheelchair when she'd asked everyone to keep things light. And then you refused to sit in the chair for the photo when she was just trying to include you." "She assaulted me," I said. "There's video. There are witnesses." "Witnesses can be mistaken," Dad said quickly. "It all happened so fast. People see what they want to see." I let my expression go, weary and uncertain, performed the helplessness they'd always expected from me. "Mom, Dad, I said quietly. This isn't about what I want anymore. The police have the video, the witness testimony, the medical documentation. This is a criminal matter between the state and Serena. I'm not the judge. I don't control what happens now. Both technically true. Once assault charges are filed by the state, the victim cannot simply make them disappear. My parents didn't understand the legal system well enough to know that. They thought everything could be fixed with the right words, the right pressure, the right leverage. They thought they'd found a loophole. They hadn't. They left without asking how I was feeling. Without acknowledging that their daughter had publicly assaulted their other daughter in front of 50 witnesses and a chief of neurosurgery. Daniel, who had been quiet during their visit, stared at the closed door after they left. Are they serious? Are they actually serious right now? They always want me to lie for her, I said. That's not new. Dr. Ashford was on her phone before the door had closed behind my parents. Richard? Claire Ashford. I need you to contact Raymond Holt. He's the witness in the engagement party assault case. Make sure he understands witness tampering laws and exactly how to report it if anyone approaches him about changing his statement. She hung up and turned to us. Richard is my attorney. He's going to make sure our witness is protected. My lawyer, Jennifer Hart, called 3 days later. Serena's defense team wants to negotiate a plea deal, she said. The video evidence is strong. The witness testimony is solid. Assault on a disabled person with serious bodily injury. She's facing significant prison time if this goes to trial. We're talking a potential 10-year sentence. What are they offering? If you submit a victim impact statement requesting leniency and tell the judge you believe your sister can be rehabilitated, they'll plead guilty to a reduced charge. She'd likely serve 2 years, possibly less with good behavior. I sat with that. 2 years instead of 10. Still prison. Still real consequences, but not life-destroying. There's a condition, Ms. Hart continued. Full restitution. Medical expenses, lost wages, therapy, pain and suffering, punitive damages. Their proposal is $420,000. I nearly dropped the phone. Your current hospitalization alone is close to $60,000, Ms. Hart said calmly. Add the prior medical costs from the accident, the long-term care expenses, punitive damages for the emotional harm. It's actually conservative. Some attorneys would push for double. They have 7 days to wire the full amount before the preliminary hearing. If they don't pay, we go to trial and your sister serves the full 10 years. My parents didn't have $420,000 in accessible cash. They had a comfortable life, a house, dad's insurance management salary, mom's part-time income, a sailboat they kept on the coast, retirement accounts they'd built over 3 decades. Not this. If they want this plea deal, they pay, Ms. Hart said. If they don't, they don't. Are you willing to submit the leniency statement if they meet the financial terms? I thought about it for a long time. 2 years would give Serena consequences without erasing her entirely. The money would give me choices, real ones, not the scraps I'd been managing on. Yes, I said. My parents arrived that evening looking 10 years older than they had the day before. $420,000, Dad said without preamble. That's what they're demanding. That's what was calculated, I said neutrally. We don't have that kind of money, Mom said. We've been to the bank. We've called everyone we know. You can liquidate both retirement accounts, I said. Between them, after penalties and taxes, you'd net somewhere around $200,000. You can sell the sailboat, not through a broker, through a wholesaler. You'll take a loss but you'll have cash quickly. That's another 80, maybe 100,000. For the rest, there are lenders who fund against home equity in days. Mom stared at me. That's our retirement, Dad said. That's everything we've worked for. And my spine is broken, I said. My career as a dancer is gone. My life as I knew it ended because Serena was texting while driving, and you made me lie about it. You protected her then. You protected her every time. Now you get to decide what matters more, your retirement fund or your daughter's freedom. You're really going to do this, Dad said. You're going to destroy your own family. I'm not destroying anything, I said. Serena did that at the engagement party. I'm just refusing to lie about it anymore. You pay the restitution. I signed the leniency statement. She serves 2 years instead of 10. Everyone walks away. Everyone except us, Dad said. We'll have nothing. You'll have your house, your jobs, and your health, I said. That's more than Serena left me with. Mom started crying, real tears this time, not the performed kind. How can you be so cruel? I learned, I said quietly, from watching what happened when you protected the wrong daughter. They left without another word. On the 6th day, my lawyer called. They're doing it. Your father liquidated both retirement accounts this morning, took a heavy hit on the early withdrawal penalties. They sold the sailboat to a marine salvage company for immediate cash, a fraction of its value. They signed with a high-interest lender against the home equity for the remainder. Will it clear in time? It'll be very close. On the 7th day, At 4:47 in the afternoon, 13 minutes before the deadline, my lawyer called again. The wire cleared. $420,000, paid in full. I closed my eyes and exhaled. Serena stood before a judge and pleaded guilty to aggravated assault. She was sentenced to 2 years in a state correctional facility, with possibility of parole after 18 months for good behavior. My victim impact statement was read aloud in court. I had written about the pain and the betrayal, about a lifetime of being erased and diminished. But I had also written that I believed in the possibility of change, that I hoped Serena would use this time to reflect, that I wanted justice, not vengeance. I watched the hearing via video link from a rehabilitation facility where I'd begun physical therapy. When the sentence was handed down, I watched Serena's face cycle through shock, disbelief, and finally, for the first time I could remember in my adult life, something that looked like it might actually be genuine remorse. My parents sat behind her, holding hands, their faces hollowed out. Daniel sat in the back of the courtroom. When it was over, he looked directly at the camera and gave one slow nod. A goodbye. An acknowledgement. Some things, once broken, cannot be repaired. He deserved better than Serena had given him, and I was glad he understood that now. The money cleared from the legal trust into my personal account, $420,000. I paid off my medical debts. I found a beautiful, accessible apartment in Savannah, wide doorways, elevator, morning light. I set aside a dedicated fund for future medical needs, because with a T10 injury, there are always future medical needs. And then I did something I had never thought I'd have the courage to do. I cut off all contact with my parents. Blocked their numbers. Returned their letters unopened. When they showed up at my new building, I did not answer the intercom. They had made their choices. They had always made their choices. Now I was making mine. 18 months have passed since the courtroom gavel fell, and I am sitting on a sun-drenched coastal path in the south of France. For the first time in nearly 4 years, I don't feel like I'm drowning. The Mediterranean stretches out before me, impossibly, almost offensively blue, the kind of blue that doesn't exist in Savannah. The sand is warm where I've braced my left hand against it. My matte black carbon wheelchair sits beside me, the same one Serena tried to drape in a white tablecloth. It's in full sunlight now. I'm not hiding it. I'm not hiding anything. The restitution money changed the shape of my life. Not because money repairs a spinal cord, nothing does that, and anyone who tells you otherwise is in the business of selling hope on installment plans, but because it bought me options. Real ones. Not the scraps my parents used to offer with their sympathetic smiles and their maybe next year, Vivian. A significant portion went to fund experimental neural interface treatment at the Zurich Neuroscience Research Institute, cutting-edge work that makes neurologists either very excited or very skeptical, with almost no middle ground. Dr. Ashford, ever pragmatic, gave me the referral with a simple, worth exploring. No promises. The research is real. The results were not the movie moment, no sudden standing up, no dramatic first steps while an orchestra swells. Recovery never works that way, no matter what anyone tells you. But 3 weeks ago, during a focused visualization session, something happened. My right big toe moved, just slightly, barely a millimeter, but I felt it. A faint current of electricity running down my calf, following pathways that had been completely dark and silent for 42 months. The first real sensation below my T10 injury since the accident. I stared at my foot for a full minute, certain I'd imagined it. Then I did it again, and again. Mari, sitting beside me, started screaming before I even processed what I was seeing. She launched herself out of her chair and grabbed my shoulders and cried louder than I did, which is saying something. Mari, who is 35 and one of the most unreasonably kind people I have ever encountered in my life. I met her at the Institute in Zurich, where she'd been volunteering to help international patients navigate the German medical system. She'd cared for her own paralyzed sister for a decade before losing her to complications. When we met, she said I reminded her of her sister, same stubborn determination, same dark humor about difficult circumstances, same absolute refusal to be defined by a limitation. Mari became, without either of us planning it, the sister I had never actually had. The one who showed up, the one who stayed. Let's go get ice cream, I say now, my treat. She laughs, this full-bodied, generous laugh that makes strangers turn and smile without knowing why, and moves behind my chair. Let's go, little sister, she says, and pushes me along the coastal path. The wind off the water tastes like salt. The sun is warm on my face. The pathway curves ahead of us through Bougainvillea, and somewhere around the bend, I can already hear the particular easy noise of a seaside town going about its afternoon. My phone buzzes in my bag. An email from Mom, subject line empty, an image attachment, a photo of a handwritten letter. I recognized the handwriting before I read a word. Serena's careful Catholic school cursive, unchanged. She was released last week, Mom's brief accompanying note says. Good behavior. She didn't come home. Found a small town somewhere in the Midwest. Works at a bakery. Rents an apartment above a hardware store. The letter itself is short. Vivian. I'm sorry for what I took from you. I don't expect you to forgive me. The time helped me understand what I was. I am trying to learn to be a decent person, starting from the beginning. Live well. I read it twice. My chest doesn't tighten. There's no old surge of rage or grief or the complicated sick feeling that used to arrive whenever Serena entered my thoughts. What I feel instead is something quieter and more complete than vindication. I simply don't need anything from her anymore. Not the apology, words are cheap, and Serena's have always been her most practiced feature. Not reconciliation. Not the particular revenge fantasy of watching her understand what she cost me. She is somewhere in the Midwest, learning to be a decent person from scratch. I hope, for her sake, she manages it. She can do that work without me. I close the email. I put my phone away. Mari, I say. She is already smiling, because she has known me long enough to know what I'm about to propose. Ice cream, she says. Absolutely, you're buying. She pushes me around the bend in the path, and the ocean opens up wider in front of us, and the town comes into view, and our laughter goes up into the salt air and disappears. This is my family. This is my life. And it turns out it is extraordinary. If any part of this story found something real in you, if you have ever been the one who was expected to disappear quietly, to lie to protect someone who wouldn't protect you, to make yourself small so someone else could feel big, leave that in the comments.